Hello and welcome to South Shore Realtors local legislative meeting today. I'm Bob Sullivan, co-chair of Government Affairs Committee at South Shore Realtors. And along with my co-chair Rita Coffey, we welcome you all and thank you for being here and attending. Our legislators are an important component of the business, and it's important to establish rapport so that we can keep them informed of our issues and they can keep us informed of what's happening at the State House level. For those of you that attended Mara's keynote yesterday, and if you didn't, it is recorded and available to you. You got to hear the talking points and priorities of our agenda this year. And you should have received a copy with our emails. Before we begin, I would like to recognize that this event is being sponsored, as you can see by the slide, by our platinum, gold, silver, and copper sponsors. Please look at the slide. You've gotten that in your email. There's too many to mention off by name. But we really appreciate their support, and without their support, this event could not happen. My co-host today is South Shore Realtor President Mary D'Ambra. And before Mary takes over to introduce the legislators and staff available to you today, I'm just going to highlight some of the talking points. And for more detail, you can watch that MAR video and Justin goes through them in a lot of detail. But in the interest of time, I just want to skim over them, and you did receive a copy as well. First of all, I want to thank you for enacting the Housing Choice Bill. That is changes the local requirements from a 2/3 supermajority to a simple majority for 10 housing changes that promote best practices and housing growth. It really is great that the state has passed this, and we need to encourage local governments and towns to also do that to help promote housing growth. We do still have a massive housing shortage in the state. 4.1% of the total housing units is a deficit, which means 120,000 units short. If we added 27,000 units a year, we would catch up in 2025, just to give you a couple of talking points on that. Also, one of our priorities is support of the fair housing, diversity, and education. This bill is co-sponsored by Taki Chan, and it would promote having licensees take 4 hours of credits in their licensing, and for continuing add 2 hours in fair housing. This will help level the playing field and eradicate irresponsible behavior. And we really do support that, and thank you for sponsoring that. A first-time buyer savings accounts. This is a big deal for the young people getting out of college with a lot of college debt. It would allow for them to save $5,000 a year, up to 15 years, up to $50,000 tax-free, and be able to take a credit on their taxes. Each home sale adds $146,000 economic impact to Massachusetts. So that's really something everyone should be behind, all of the towns and businesses. Once someone purchases the house, they add quite a bit to the economy by rehabbing that. Also, of course, we do oppose some items as well. Transfer taxes, there are more than 10 bills proposed this year that we are opposed to. It is not an equitable way to share the tax burden. It puts the burden on about 2% of the population. Also, rent control in the same vein, that makes it more difficult to acquire housing as a tenant, and also disincentivize people to build multifamily homes. And again, it's an unfair burden to them. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to President Mary D'Ambra for introductions. She will introduce everyone and give everyone time to speak. And then at the end, if there's any questions, we will address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. Thank you to all of our local legislators and their staff who've joined us today. We greatly appreciate your participation. As Bob said, I'll introduce each of you, and please feel free to take a few minutes to speak to any of our Realtor legislative priorities or tell us about something important that's going on in your own district. Some webinar attendees may ask questions in the chat, which we'll try and get to later if time permits. So first, we are going to go to Senator Michael Brady. Senator?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I hope we get to somewhat back to normalcy so we can meet in person. It's been a difficult road with the pandemic, though we have been vaccinating quite a few people and getting a majority of the residents vaccinated. Now they're talking about vaccinating the younger children as well as school is open. I represent the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district, which goes from the town of 2 precincts in Northeast and through the city of Brockton, all the way over to Hanover down to Plimpton. And a couple of things we're working on, mass housing, and I know it was brought up a few minutes ago. It's tough for young people to get down payments on houses. And the housing market, as we know, has gone through the roof, which is great if you own a home, but if you're looking to buy a home, it's very difficult. And as was mentioned, there's not a lot of stock out there for apartments or homes. So mass housing has a plan in place, and I'm working with them to get down payment assistance. And if they live in the city of Brockton and a gateway city, they're able to get up to $25,000 down payment, and their income levels are quite substantial, over $100,000. So it's not just for the less fortunate people. We're talking middle income people or above. And then for the towns that I represent outside of Brockton or the gateway cities, there's a less of a down payment, but they have a down payment assistance. So if my office can be of any help with that, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I believe we have Representative Taki Chan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Taki Chan. I represent the 2nd Norfolk District in the city of Quincy. I'm also the chair of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure that oversees the boards of registration, of which the Realtors is part of the group. And the Mass Realtors Association, has done a wonderful job as your statewide lobbying agent with Scott and Mark Delaney up here on advocating on your behalf on the statewide issues. And my committee's actually been very involved, actually throughout the pandemic, monitoring the impact of all industries in the state, particularly in hospitality and licensed professions. And the board of registration oversees well into almost 600,000 licensees, including realtors. And we've been very concerned about the pandemic impact on everybody. And we can actually track how industries are moving through who does not renew the licenses. The Realtors Board is actually one of those boards that actually has increased licensing, new licensees coming on as you're on pandemic. And those of you who've been around a few years knows every time there's an economic change, people change professions. The two that have always been very popular is realtors and massage therapists. But right now, massage therapist isn't very popular because of the close proximity contact nature and the impact on the COVID transmission. So the virtual nature of education, the virtual nature of showing homes that the realtors have migrated over, the high level of health and safety protocols, has made this profession much more appealing today. So I regretfully, I can't stay too long. I actually have back to back, even though we're living in a virtual world. But just to let you all know that I am paying attention to a number of your issues that you present, including things like transfer taxes, the importance of access housing, supply issues, continuing education, all the different topics you presented, as well as looking beyond the kind of the immediate agenda of the realtors into the larger economic picture that my committee oversees.
Thank you.
Oh, Yeji's on the line. So my staff at Yeji's on the line. So if you guys got questions or whatnot, she can always bring them back to me later.
Perfect. And we appreciate any time you can spend with us. So thank you. Next, we have Senator Patrick O'Connor. Senator.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everyone virtually. I agree with Senator Brady's sentiments that looking forward to ditching the Zoom in the not so distant future for more face-to-face interactions. First off, I wanted to thank all of you. The Realtors have played such a integral role in the continued growth and expansion despite a pandemic of our economy. You see the housing market right now in this state, and it is absolutely on fire. And I think a lot of that goes to the desirable location that all of us are collectively building here in Massachusetts, but also you, the Realtors, that are selling our communities, and really the forward-facing individuals who are some of the first people that the people who we represent who move into our districts meet and get a feel for. So we deeply appreciate the work that all of you are doing, and understand the needs and challenges that are being faced right now. As Tacky had said, the Delaney brothers are great up here to really highlight some of the needs and demands that are facing the realty industry right now. I was so happy that we were able to pass the housing choice bill at the very, very tail end of last session, literally in the last hours. I had the privilege of serving on the Economic Development Conference Committee, where the housing choice language was able to come out of. And I think that's going to be a big first step for the state to take in order to really address the housing crisis, I would say, that we have currently. Some of the good stuff that's heading down our way on the South Shore. Myself and Representative Moschino were able to secure money and just go to the official ribbon cutting of a brand new home for individuals with developmental disabilities in Cohasset. And we have a home opening up in Marshfield for veterans who are homeless. And that goes to couple what we already have in Hingham and what we have in Weymouth too. As we continue to meet the demands of affordable housing and working in and around Chapter 40 and how we're going to eventually solve all of that, I think what goes hand in hand with that is thinking out of the box and creating housing for specific individuals that face a need right now. And that's really been one of our focuses down on the South Shore. As you all know, housing stock is limited and housing prices are through the roof, and even buildable plots of land are incredibly expensive now compared to what they were. We know that there needs to be more stock and more opportunities for individuals to live on the South Shore and experience the great communities that we have. And that's going to be one of our core priorities. The two bills that you had sent over in the packet that I have here, I am signed on as a co-sponsor of the two bills the Realtors support, and I do not support the bills that the Realtors oppose. So very simply put, we deeply appreciate what you've done in my office, and I know in all my colleagues' office. We support the initiatives that will continue to make our communities more diverse, more open, and more equitable to individuals all across the state and all across the country to get the experience in the South Shore that everyone really deserves to have.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your support. Next, we have, is Representative Howitt joining us? Or we have?
Yes, I am on.
Okay. Brandon?
Nope, it's me, Rep Howitt.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. Well, you're next.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for putting this on. I'll just give a little background of myself. I represent the 4th Bristol District, which is Seekonk, Rehoboth, parts of Norton, and parts of Swansea. So I sort of straddle two gateway cities, being Attleboro and Fall River. And I am a former contractor, excavation contractor, doing all types of work from sewer, septic, excavation for housing, water. So that is my background. I also have a Massachusetts general contractor's license. I've built houses and commercial buildings. And I also still have my Mass and Rhode Island broker's license. So I'm sort of in tune with your industry. I'm in my 6th term and part of the minority caucus, and working real hard to get the economy going. A few things which I see problematic naturally are housing for our veterans and our elderly, constantly getting calls or emails, can you help us get into one of the senior housing projects? And they're all full. We need, more so than anything, whether it be for veterans or for seniors, to have affordable housing for them first and foremost. Another issue I see coming up, which is going to be very problematic, as you know, there was legislation or executive order requiring owners who are owed rentals not to evict. Now, with the courts being the way they are, everything is backed up. And many of these people were earning more money staying at home than they were working. And so, and they still are. And in many cases, businesses are contacting me saying that they cannot find any help to work because they'd rather stay home and collect. But during this whole time of collecting all this money, many people, because they knew they couldn't get evicted, have not paid their rents. And whether it be a large company or a older couple who might have their first house or first multi-house that they've used to supplement their retirement income, these people who owe all this money, you know, probably have spent it. They're not going to be able to come up with a balloon payment. So we have a big deficit of rents that are due. And I see that to be problematic. And I don't know what will be the solution to that issue.
Thank you. Next, we have Representative Kathy Lenatra.
Hi there. Good to be with you all this hot afternoon. I'm Kathy Lenatra. I represent the 12th Plymouth District, which is Kingston, Plimpton, Halifax, part of Plymouth, part of Middleborough, and part of Duxbury. I'm also a realtor working for Coldwell Banker. I've been doing that for about 8 years. So the market's crazy. We all know the market's crazy. And I really have to tell you that my heart aches for our younger people trying to get into this housing market. Affordable these days is $450,000 for a young person coming out of college or just getting married. And when that house comes on the market, we all know there's 12 offers on it and it's going $50,000 over ask. This is something, you know, we need more affordable housing and we need to get rid of the stigma of what affordable housing actually is. So affordable housing, as we all know, are for our teachers, for our firefighters, for our police officers, for our people starting out. So you know, that is my passion. Having a 27-year-old who has been outbid, I think 15 times now, very frustrating as a mother, as a parent, and as a realtor. So thank you for sending all your paperwork. I support everything that you support and oppose everything that you oppose, and proud to be a realtor as well. So thank you for having me with you this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Representative Joan Moschino.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward to hearing everyone's remarks. So I'm Rep. Joan Moschino from the 3rd Plymouth District, representing the towns of Hingham, Hull, Cohasset, and North Situate. I had a chance to look over your materials. Thank you for sending that along, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more. This is not actually a space that I'm familiar with, although I will pause and say that I have some really fantastic realtors in my district who I hear from very regularly. So you should just know that there are some pretty good articulate voices down here that grab me pretty quickly to let me know when something is going on and when I need to be paying attention to something. And I just had a chance to talk to Jean yesterday, and I'm just looking forward to learning more about your issues, working closely with you, and hopefully things will all move forward together for the economic recovery. But also I heard Rep. Lenatra talking about one of the things that we've really become acutely aware of, which is the affordable housing component. So apologies for just popping on late. It's been a busy morning with lots of hearings, and I look forward to meeting you all and hearing more.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Representative Allison Sullivan. Or maybe not yet. I think that we have Josh Newhall from Representative Norman Orrell's office. Josh, hi.
Hey there, everybody. Thanks for having me in the rep's place. I really apologize that he couldn't be here himself today. Unfortunately, he got stuck between two committee hearings that he's having to split time between the two of them as it is. So I'm sorry that you guys have to accept my presence instead, but I will do my best to be a good substitute. Just to echo some of the things I've been hearing, I can really echo what Rep Howitt and Rep Legislators were just saying. We've been receiving a lot of calls. As the person that answers the phone in our office, I can tell you we've been receiving a lot of calls and a lot of emails from constituents either concerned about veteran or elderly housing. So those two are some resources we'd love to see bumped up down here, and we're looking for any way to do that as possible. And as a young person myself who has been looking to get out of his parents' home, I can tell you that it's a little intimidating to go into this market as a young, potentially somebody who's earning less income. So we've been hearing a lot of complaints about that, not just me echoing in the reps here. So love to see what you guys have for us, and we're happy to support this. Oh, and a little background on Rep Worrell. He's a civil engineer prior to his career here. So he has definitely some sentiments on the construction industry and how crazy it is right now for developing new housing, especially with lumber prices right now. I know that's been another snafu in developing the market. So it's been a wild year for this whole scenario. So we're happy to have a chance to talk and get more ideas. Thanks for having me, folks.
Thank you so much. I think do we have Representative Sullivan? I thought we did, but not seeing her. Okay, just want to remind everybody that if you have any questions that you want to ask, this is the time. We've got all these legislators here with all of this knowledge, so ask away.
If I may, and
Yes.
I do have a question. I asked my office and I don't think we received a email on the packet. So if you don't have my email correct, it's michael.brady@masenate.gov.
Okay, apologize for that, Jean.
That's right. Things happen and things could have got lost in the shuffle, because I even spoke to my office this morning before we started this virtual meeting, and they said they had not found anything. So whenever you is convenient for you, I'm happy to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing we did pass recently, but the governor did veto one of the sections, so we're waiting to take that up. I know it's been mentioned about veterans, because a lot of veterans are suffering out there, serving the Veterans Committee as well as other committees. And we did pass to build a new soldiers home up in Holyoke, but as importantly, because not every family can get up to Holyoke to visit their families, and we're on the South Shore, the Commonwealth DCAM is going to be looking at other parts of the Commonwealth and look for other homes for veterans to build new homes. So that's so important to take of our veterans, especially that are suffering and homeless and so forth, you know.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Cole Angley is here from Representative Sullivan's office. So Cole, would you like to?
Sure,
speak on
Cole from
behalf?
Rep Cutler's office, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, it's Curtis Boucher, sorry, but go ahead.
Sure. My name's Cole. I'm Rep Josh Cutler's staff director. Rep Cutler represents the 6th Plymouth District, Pembroke, Duxbury, and Hanson. He apologizes for not being with you guys this morning. He's actually chairing a labor and workforce hearing going on right now, discussing wage theft. But happy to be here. As you folks may know, Rep Cutler is very involved in the realtor industry and knows these issues in and out. I will say, as a 27-year-old myself who's been renting in Boston for the past 5 years and looking to move back down to the South Shore where I grew up, it is certainly a daunting and expensive task. So happy to hear any solutions that may selfishly help me out as I look to go back to the South Shore and start a family. So appreciate that and always happy to chat.
Thank you. So do we have Curtis Boucher from Representative Sullivan's office, or?
Yes, I'm on. Actually,
okay.
We're working with the rep right now. She's having some technical difficulties. She is on the line.
Okay.
But we're trying to figure that out.
Okay, well, you let me know when she's ready. Okay. We have a couple of questions in our chat from some of the attendees. And one of them is asking about if there's any way that at the state level, the subject of transfer taxes can be shut down once and for all. Is that something that someone here would like to take a stab at answering?
Could someone kindly explain to, at least to me, what a transfer tax is?
Oh, so what this attendee is referring to is a transfer tax on the sale of a home or purchase of a home, but transferring ownership.
Is this in regards to the increase the governor proposed in the transfer fee to deal with TCI?
I think so. Again, I'm reading a question from the chat, and I think what they're meaning is, you know, instead of all these individual communities that we keep on getting very stressed about possibly instituting a transfer tax within a local community, this person is asking, is there something that can be done at the state level to stop that from happening?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look into the specific circumstance, if there's a bill that they're talking about, or if there's a proposal. That would be helpful to kind of have a baseline of what the specific circumstance is. I mean, obviously there's talk in regards to transfer tax and the possibility of having that be, you know, localized. But I would say right now, there's no real movement at the state level to increase any revenue at this point in time, minus the potential ballot question for the millionaires tax in 2 years. That would be my just overall take of sort of where we're at right now. The American Rescue Plan over the next 2 years is going to give the state $4.5 billion and all of our communities $3.5 billion combined. So I would say that now's, you know, really the time to invest those resources into the things that we've been holding off in our communities and not looking to go to our taxpayers or our new home buyers to make up sort of that delta that may need to be made up with with such an availability of federal funds right now. And the state generally is doing well too. You know, in May, we went above benchmark almost by double. And, you know, despite what has happened over the past 14, 15 months, the state's in really healthy financial shape. And I don't see the need for that. But if there's any specific circumstances that want to talk about them, you know, we're open to that as well.
Okay, I think I'm going to have Kimberly Allard, who is one of our attendees, has something to say about transfer tax. So maybe that will shed some more light on it. And sorry, I'm just trying to remember how I give her permission to speak. Marie.
I just gave her permission. You should be good, Kim. All right, thank you. Thanks, everyone, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm a resident of Holbrook, a 23-year licensee with the state as a broker and a Realtor member for 23 years as well. You know, transfer taxes, and we appreciate your attention to this. You know, the issue with transfer taxes is typically when they come up, it's too late. It's, I don't want to say it's like athlete's foot, but, you know, preventative is the best measure. And by that, I mean that, you know, there's a lot of misnomers out there. Transfer taxes are presented locally, you know, in our own communities, and they're usually presented to those folks that don't know any better, typically homeowners or folks with kids in the school system or folks that are frustrated with infrastructure. And, you know, again, under cover of darkness, it's presented to the community as if we just charged a very small percent to those people selling their homes, that are taking advantage of this market and leaving our community, then we could raise and, insert a number, and they, it's often in the millions, if not billions. And there are people sitting in a community find that appealing. And they're like, well, we're going to tax people that are leaving. The consequence of that inequitable tax is a couple of things. One, the median price of a single family home in Massachusetts is up over 500,000 right now. So that tax, even at 2.5%, could represent almost $14,000 to a buyer or a seller. Sellers don't want to pay it. Sellers don't want to pay anything in this market. So they would be passing that on to a buyer. And the important thing about a transfer tax is they are unable to be financed. So that would mean that a buyer who maybe planned on putting 3.5% down on an FHA loan, or somebody that planned on putting 5% down, would now have to come up with another $13,000 or $14,000 on a, and again, we're only talking a $500,000 home. So you can see that buyers aren't running around with extra cash these days. Sellers aren't interested in paying these costs, and this would therefore, or at least our national numbers show us that there's a number of white papers that show that property values in communities that have transfer taxes can actually drop. And then, what do we do with that tax on the property? It's now put towards things that the person leaving the community has no benefit of. And it's just not a stable funding source. So, and again, at a minimum, the housing market is cyclical and often volatile. So, you can't possibly budget based upon the number of home sales or anticipated home sales. So for a variety of reasons, we're against that. But the scary part about a transfer tax is that when presented at the local town meeting or to the, the low members of a community, this looks like a great idea. And some of our realtor members don't even realize what it is or how harmful it is. And then you've got some areas where they start out with a small transfer tax, and then they end up with 5, 6, or 7% transfer tax. So, no tax ever goes away. If anything, it usually just gets bigger. So, we strongly oppose transfer taxes, although we completely support money put towards infrastructure and things like that. This is just a very dangerous and unequitable way to attack the sale of a home that is, quite frankly, already taxed. So we hope that with everyone's support, including our own members here in the Commonwealth, that we keep an eye out for such actions like this, and we are prepared to mobilize and provide facts, not just opinions, about transfer taxes and how harmful they become. So, we ask you for your support if you hear about them, and then at least give us an opportunity, because we can, again, mobilize and show up often at these meetings and sessions, prepared to talk about the consequences of transfer taxes, what you think they do and what they actually do. So the idea here is get it before it happens. So thank you so much. I wanted to offer a kind of a practitioner's perspective of transfer taxes and the fact that they are often presented as good for the community when in fact they are not. Thank you, President D'Ambra.
Thank you, Kimberly. So there you have it. That was a pretty thorough explanation of transfer taxes. We have Senator John Keenan just joined us. So Senator, if you'd like to take a few minutes and if you'd care to speak to any of our legislative priorities or what's going on in your district, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I apologize for coming in a little late. I just actually hung up on from a phone call, which the focus was on infrastructure as it relates not only to housing development, but other types of development, but primarily a lot of discussion about housing. So I apologize for being late, but thank you for just the opportunity to say hello. And in terms of maybe what I'm seeing or hearing in my district, whether it's Holbrook, as we just heard, or any other town in my district, is that the cost of housing is just outrageous. And I heard yesterday an interesting perspective from a realtor who told me that one of the things she's seeing out there now, and I'm curious as to whether other folks are also, is that with a housing prices so high and all the stories of people paying well beyond the list price, that where there's these competitions to see in terms of offers, there's a concern that is starting to scare people away, that when they see a house listed at a certain price, they say, well, that's going to sell for another 30, 40, or $50,000 beyond the price. So I'm really not interested in that. I can't afford it. I'm not going to get involved in a bidding war. And there's a concern that was expressed to me that keeping people perhaps out of the market. Now, whether that's good or bad, and if there's fewer people in the market, maybe that helps modulate prices. I don't know, but it was an interesting perspective, I thought. So really, I think the overall challenge is that housing is so very expensive in the communities that I represent, as it is in the region and throughout the Commonwealth. And we are struggling with the answer because in all of that, we know that in this region, it's difficult to build a single family housing to any great extent, because most of a lot of the communities are kind of developed out, or there's some restrictive zoning that's in place. And there is still a hesitancy to change that zoning to allow for greater density single family housing. And then when you get to the developments that are multi-unit and more dense, there is opposition to that, as it has been historically, based on traffic issues and impact on school systems. And now we are hearing more, and in my communities particularly, that there isn't the infrastructure in place to accommodate the housing developments that are being proposed, particularly under 40B. I have two proposed, or two that are somewhat controversial, one in Abington, one in Rockland. And the argument being put forth by the community, and there's merit to it, is that there are some real infrastructure concerns. And so as we look at how do we address housing, yes, we have to have programs in place to promote affordable housing, to increase our housing stock, but we have to recognize that our ability to do both of those things is impacted by the condition of our infrastructure. We've got to address sewage and particularly water supply. For those communities that are not MWRA communities, water supply is a real issue, and the quality of that water and as well as the quantity. So those are the some observations about what's going on in the district. In terms of specific legislation, I'll just touch on, I guess, one in particular. Rent control seems to be an issue that seems to be picking up some steam within certain quarters. And, historically, that's just never shown itself to be an option. And my opposition to rent control would be that it doesn't do anything to increase the supply of housing. It just results in more the same people competing for the same number of units. And when you have rent control put in place for a certain segment of the population, for the rest of those home seekers, it means that they are competing for even a fewer number of houses. And while you may see those that have rent control experience stable rents, it doesn't. It has a negative impact, I believe, on the rest of the market. So I know that that's an issue. The transfer taxes, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. There is a sense that that's necessary. I agree with all the comments that Kimberly made about transfer taxes, that it does has an impact on pricing. And we just talked about the cost of housing. I've got a house next to me here in Quincy on my little side street, where each lot is 5,000 square feet, mostly house. Some grass in the front, some grass in the rear, Cape style houses or small colonial style homes. The house next to me is on the market for $650,000, and the expectation is that it may sell for as much as $700,000. It's a nice house. It's a Cape, but you think $700,000 is a big price for a relatively small house on a small lot on a side street in Quincy. And when you think about the impacts perhaps of a transfer tax, it will have an impact on somebody's ability to purchase that house. So we've got to watch those, and I agree with Kimberly. I think we've got to watch those proposals very, very closely. So just in terms of the things that we did recently relative to zoning changes, I don't think, and I'm curious as to what you folks may have heard, I don't think the communities in my district, the leaders in my district are fully aware of what has been done relative to requiring dense zoning districts within a half mile of transportation centers, red line stops, for instance, as it impacts my district. I don't think there's a great awareness that that's in place among many, and even those that serve on permit granting authorities, or boards or commissions rather. And I don't think there's really a full understanding yet of the impact of requiring only a majority vote to enact zoning changes or to permit certain projects. I think what may happen is that when a project comes through that otherwise may not have been permitted in a certain area, is found to be compliant with a new zoning district, and that any other approval necessary has only got to be done by a majority vote. When one of those projects becomes public and makes its way through the process, I think there's going to be some response from the community, some negative response to those proposals and to the impact that it may have in their neighborhoods. So I think we have to be ready for that. While it's being touted as the key to promoting and providing more housing, I think there is going to be a tension that develops as those zoning districts are put in place and then as projects are permitted within those zoning districts. So we have to be aware of that. Those are just some kind of random general thoughts on the things in my district. I don't think the need for affordable housing has ever been as stark as what it is right now. I don't think there's been the degree of uncertainty about housing future and the place of work as it relates to housing and transportation. I don't think there's been as much uncertainty about all of that as there is right now. And it's going to be really challenging from a policy perspective to anticipate what's needed next or to drive what's perceived to be needed next. And while we still have communities that don't quite know what they want to be in terms of housing. And so it's going to be fascinating, no doubt.
Those are all great points, and thank you, Senator, for joining us. Next, we have from Senator Timothy's office, Keisha Adarkwa. Keisha?
Yes, hi everybody.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me today. Unfortunately, the senator can't join us because he is stuck between two different hearings. He is the chair of the Public Safety Committee that's having their hearing, and then there's also a Labor and Workforce Development hearing that's going on. So he's a little bit spread thin, but he does send his best. And again, this is, you know, as just to echo what everybody else is saying, such an important topic. And, as a young person myself, just to echo everyone on the call, it's really a daunting topic. So, just thank you for letting us be here, and please continue to keep us in the know. Anything that we can do, to support you all and in this process, we'd be more than happy to help. But thank you again for having me, and please continue to keep us in the know.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So we have a couple of other questions in the chat. So one is anyone aware of any action plans in respect to repurposing vacant commercial properties in our municipalities to house veterans, seniors, workforce, and I'll add in disabled housing because it's always my favorite subject. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Madam President, it's Mike Brady again. I know that, and I can't speak for the rest of the Commonwealth, but in my district, especially the city of Brockton, we've been doing this right along. It's left up to the local, city council to change the zoning, or if they go to the zoning board and get a appeal to get a little leeway. We've been converting a lot of the old, because, Brockton was known as the shoe capital of the world. Those days are long gone. they have been converting a lot of the downtown properties into housing, and we've done quite a bit. In its market rate, it's not just low income housing, but it, as was mentioned, it's affordable for, firefighters, police officers, teachers when they're first starting into the workforce, so it's workforce housing as well. And we've been doing it right along, and with help from, as I mentioned earlier, Mass Housing or other entities, there is benefits for low interest loans or down payment assistance on these properties. So they've been doing this, but it's left up to the local communities. And again, it's location. In our downtown, there's no opposition at all to convert these old factories or other types of commercial properties into housing. The outskirts of the city, that's been more difficult because of the way things have been presented on the borders of the Easton, Brockton border, Stoughton border, or the other side of town. There has been opposition because there is concern about the impact on the schools and traffic, et cetera. And it's based on what they plan on putting there. If they're 1 or 2 bedroom units, they're not as concerned as like 3 or 4 bedroom units, and though there's a need for those out there too, we all know that. The other thing in some of the other towns we're running into 40B, there's a couple proposals in one of the communities I represent. The residents are in favor of 2 of the proposed 40B projects, but the third one, it sits on another town's local dump. They said they did testing on the soil and everything else, and there's a lot of concerns. And we met with the residents over there and met with the proposed developer. And we said to the developer, why don't you meet with the residents to answer any concerns if they want trees planted, a buffer zone, et cetera. But unfortunately, that developer's yet to meet with the residents. But as I mentioned, in the cities, and I can't speak for the rest of the Commonwealth, but Brockton, we have done a lot of this conversion of commercial property into housing units, and it's worked. And we have a commuter rail that's right down the street from our downtown in Brockton. So the transportation is there, the BAT bus, the Brockton Air Transit is right there. So it's helped out a lot of families, and we're continuing to do that. And there was a lot of proposals to convert some of these old buildings into housing units, whether they be condos or apartments. So thank you.
Thank you. Great answer. We have a question about FEMA 2.0, which reclassifies the need and amount of flood insurance for homes slated to go into effect in October. What are your thoughts on this change, and are there steps that can be taken to mitigate the effects on homeowners? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I know it wasn't in our...
So this is Joan Moschino. As someone who represents all 4 coastal communities, FEMA flood maps are actually critically important, and you definitely need to adopt them at your town meetings. I know that they've started to, the flood maps have started, they reflect climate change, they reflect the high frequency and intensity of storms and the flooding. And they're actually really super important for your towns to be able to participate in what's called the Community Rating Service Program, CRS, because when your towns participate in those programs and they take certain steps, and there's lots of different things from education all the way up to in Hull, we plant dune grass regularly along 3 miles of beach. When you take steps towards flood mitigation and resilience, that's when homeowners get a discount on the FEMA flood map, the FEMA insurance, the flooding insurance. They're super important. You will have homeowners that will not be able to get insurance any other way. And I know that it's expensive. I understand that that's an added cost. But as someone who's lived in a coastal community and grew up here, I can share with you that those are very important, and you do want to embrace that program. I'll defer to Cole Engley from Rep. Cutler's office, because I know that the rep is much more articulate, knowledgeable, and is working on that if he wanted to add anything to the new maps themselves. And to speak to the changes, my communities have been engaged in all of this, and our maps haven't changed. They just don't really change because we're already of where we are. But I did just want to pop on and say that that they are an important piece for homes that are in existing floodplains, for the resilience. And it's the only way you're going to be able to get insurance through that. And if you're not participating in the state-sponsored insurance, I promise you, nobody can afford the private insurance. So I'll just call on if Cole wanted to add anything, or certainly any of my other colleagues, but I know that Rep. Cutler has been a leader in this space.
Thank you, Rep. Mosquito. I don't have anything to add at this moment, but Rep. Cutler is the chair of the Coastal Caucus on the House side with Senator Tarr up in the North Shore, and we do have some staff that work very closely on those coastal issues. I don't have anything to add at this moment, but certainly if there's folks who have specific questions that we can assist with relative to those, I'd be happy to throw them to our staff who works on our Coastal Caucus issues. I can put my email in chat and Rep. Cutler's email in chat, and you can certainly feel free to follow up with us.
Thank you.
This is John Keane. Maybe if I can just jump in quickly. And, FEMA has gone through the process of trying to more equitably distribute the premium costs associated with flood insurance. The program has been designed, 2.0, basically to be more broad in what they consider as they set rates. It's going to include coastal erosion factors, storm surge factors, heavy rainfall factors, frequency of flooding historically. So the goal of it is to more equitably distribute the risk among policyholders and to account for the costs of rebuilding after a storm. And in some cases, the homes are valued less, in some cases more. And the inequity had been sometimes that the rates paid by those people who had lesser valued homes were disproportionate to those that had homes on the higher end. So that was the goal of everything that they did. That has to do with how they establish premiums actuarially. One of the key elements in that is where is a home and what flood area is it in? And Quincy dealt with this a few years back. They felt that the maps that had been redrawn by the feds and the placement of homes within certain areas was not done accurately. And as a result, a greater number of homes ended up in floodplain areas or flood districts, areas susceptible to flooding that shouldn't have been in there. And it was an expensive undertaking, but what the city did was that they went out basically and assisted homeowners in having their properties reviewed and having their elevations determined, and allowing homeowners to use that information to rebut what it was that the federal government was claiming relative to their particular risk. And so I think, where it all ends up, who knows? Its impact on housing remains to be seen. We had a house in our neighborhood that just recently sold, and my understanding is, and I don't know whether this is true or not, that the flood premium for that house was $9,000. And the scuttlebutt in the neighborhood was, do we hope that the people who are buying that know it? And the other talk in the neighborhood was, some people saying, well, you almost want to go out in front of the house and tell people, don't buy this house. It floods. But at the same time, literally 200 feet away, there is some rather extensive wall work being done, seawall work that's being done. They're raising the height of the seawall. And so maybe that will address it. But I think really the key to it all from a homeowner's perspective is to make sure that they're aware of the risk when they're buying a property, that they're aware of what zone it's in, what the premium is likely to be, and to be aware, and Rep. Mosquito touched on this, about the programming that is available to communities if they're active participants in the programs that are offered by the federal government, so that some of these remediation efforts, rebuilding seawalls, doing more with catchment areas can be put in place. But it's a complicated issue, and it's something legislatively I haven't been all that involved in, so I would defer to those that are more involved on it. But it is an issue that I find in my neighborhood in particular that is of concern to people. And I would tell you just quick anecdote. My wife and I have been in our house, I think, for about 29 years now, and never have we been concerned about coastal flooding. We're about 7 houses up from the water, and it wasn't until last year that we had our first concern. Never even entered our mind. And with the storms that we had, was last year, or maybe it was the year before at this stage, it didn't even come close, not even a threat, but it was the first time we thought about it. And so I think, people as they go forward and are buying homes, it's becoming more of a consideration. And it's going to be a challenge to realtors and to all of us to make sure we have the safeguards in place, that people are aware of the risk associated with a particular property, and that the premiums that they do have to pay are as fair as possible. And then that we're doing as much as we can as state and local governments to remediate some of those risks.
Thank you.
And if I may, I just wanted to do a shout out for Replinator because she has legislation on the FEMA flood maps that I believe is going through municipalities right now. I'm guessing that's why she had to hop off, because it's going through committee today. It was H2184. It was in terms of an act relative to emergency action FEMA flood insurance rate maps. It was mostly an emergency preamble for during the COVID-19 state of emergency and 30 days after. It just allowing for a 2/3 majority vote for selectmen in towns to make the choice to update the maps, kind of concurrent to the issues we're talking about here. Just wanted to do a shout out because I know she's not here at the moment, but that was one of Replinator's objectives this last this last session.
Great, thank you. Let's see, I wanted to mention that Senator Mark Pacheco has been on and listening, but with some technical difficulties and so can't interact. And I think that was the case as well for Representative Allison Sullivan. But we do have Paige Halloran from Representative Murphy's office. Paige, would you like to speak on behalf of
Sure.
Murphy?
Sure, thank you. So thank you for having me. Rep Murphy apologizes that he couldn't attend. He did have a meeting in the district at the same time as this. He represents Weymouth and Precinct 2 of Hingham. So we wanted to thank you for everything that you do, especially in this market and during COVID, and to also let you know that we are paying close attention to the issues that were brought up today. And we just really appreciate everything that your profession addresses. And if you ever need anything at all from our office, just always feel free to reach out, and I will put my email in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As usual, with all of these interesting subjects, we're running out of time. So I'm going to kick it back over to you, Bob Sullivan, our co-chair for Government Affairs. Bob.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for handling that. Great job as usual. I just want to thank everyone for being here today, for giving us an hour of your time. We really do appreciate it. We know you're all extremely busy. I also want to point out all of the prep that went into this with Rachel, our CEO, Jean, who handled all the letters. You all got the correspondence from her, and Marie. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And also, again, mention that our sponsors are platinum, silver, and copper and gold sponsors that helped us out today. And it has been recorded, so it will be available to all members, South Shore Realtors, if you want to review it or send it to your fellow office mates that were unable to attend today. So on behalf of Rita Coffey, myself, and the Government Affairs Committee and South Shore Realtors, we really thank you for being here today, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mary and Bob, as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Good one, folks.
Thanks.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Have a good
And
day.
Thank
special
you.
thanks to Kim Allard.
Always.
I love how you can just ask her a question.
Oh, she's a fount of information.
You know what I'm
Thank you for that.
saying?